Hello and welcome to our first Wednesday at 1 for our 48th season, a season unlike any other. And we're very happy that you've tuned in for a conversation with director and artistic director Bob Hupp about Talley's Folly, the play that opens our new season. Welcome, Bob.
Thanks, Kyle. Glad to be
Good to
here
see you.
in my home office.
Here we are. My goodness. So, what was it like? What was the process? I'm going to ask you about the process of directing Talley's Folly the way we have, which is in our theater, but not meant for a live audience. And I want to talk about how it is that, Syracuse Stage and you and I came to think about Talley's Folly as a play we might do during this time.
Sure.
So why don't we start there? How did we get here?
Well, so, first of all, I have to say it was so thrilling to be back in a rehearsal process, back to the task of creating a play, bringing a play to life. That was even more thrilling than I had imagined it would be. We shut down, we closed our theater on March 13. And since that time, we had been, as you know, we had been exploring what can we do. There was a lot of, well, you can't do this, and you can't do that, and you can't do that. So really, we were, as you know, focused on what can we do. And so I want to talk a little bit about how we got to Talley's Folly, but I want to just really reemphasize that idea that being in the room, in the room, by the room I mean the rehearsal hall in the theater, creating a play, even though we knew it would never be seen by folks in person, this was really exciting and emotional for the actors, for me, for the folks who were in the room. And really, during the rehearsal process, we rehearsed for safety reasons. We rehearsed in the theater. Ordinarily, we would rehearse in a small rehearsal room and move into the theater towards the very end of the process. But for safety reasons and for airflow and those reasons, we rehearsed on stage for most of the rehearsal process. And so there were only three of us allowed in the room, myself, the stage manager, and the assistant stage manager. The actors were always on stage. We were always in mask. And there was that, it was surreal in that respect, because usually a rehearsal room is a bustling place.
Yeah.
But it was really thrilling. And I know that we were very fortunate to be able to do that. And we were fortunate because of the process that went on for the several months before we were able to create Talley's Folly, that our team, our staff at Syracuse Stage came together in a fairly Herculean effort to get permission and to jump through all of the appropriate hoops that we had to jump through to do a live play and to be we were one of the first 4 LORT union theaters in the country that were given permission to go back to work. And so that was really thrilling. And now in hindsight, as we're speaking today, I think it was a window. I think that as we see numbers increase and more states moving towards shutting down again, of course, we're now concerned about, rather than Talley's Folly being the beginning of a trend that gets us through to the vaccine and a time when we can safely regather, we might be, back to some sort of hiccup. So we are particularly fortunate and thrilled that we were able to create Talley's Folly. But, you and I began the conversation really right after it became obvious that, we had planned to do Frankenstein. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was going to be the play that opened in October, co-produced with Indiana Repertory Theater. And I remember that call we got pretty early on in the spring from our friends at Indiana Rep saying, we don't think we can create this play in Indianapolis. We don't think we can get our shops back to work. That was a multi-character play, multi-actor play. And so once it became clear that we didn't think we could do that play, and we didn't think we would be able to produce plays that involved singing, because it would be real hard to put musicians in our small pit and to have people singing towards each other, it seemed unhealthy. for our audience and our artists, we had to have this conversation about what could we do. And we started looking at a lot of different projects. You and I discussed dozens of projects that might be possible. And we landed on Talley's Folly for a lot of reasons. It's a beautiful play that seemed ripe for the moment. There were themes that emerged in Talley's Folly that we thought were appropriate for the moment. There were, I had never directed the play, but I'm a big fan of Lanford Wilson. I loved the language and the simplicity, the deceiving simplicity of the language. And also, then there were the practical reasons that made Talley's Folly attractive. 2 actors, 1 set, no costume changes, no intermission. And so that fit the guidelines that we thought the unions would approve for us to go back to work, because at the time, the numbers in Onondaga County were quite low. The COVID numbers were low. So we were attractive in that regard as well. And we're in residence on the campus of Syracuse University. Syracuse University made the commitment to do in-person learning for the fall, which meant that our staff would need to be at work. And so since our staff would need to be at work, and because unlike most every other theater in the country, Syracuse Stage was in a physically strong position that allowed us to keep people employed. We didn't have to lay anybody off. We were able to meet all of our contractual obligations, a real rarity in our field right now. But because of that, we had the staff who could create a real piece of theater in the space. We had all of our technicians and artisans. And so, and university was back at work, and we were able to draw on the expertise of our university, of our local hospital, of so many experts who could help us figure out a way to go back to work safely. And so those ingredients all led to our ability to get permission, and it took a lot of work to get permission to do Talley's Folly and to make a recording of the live performance. And then, of course, the real special piece of the real special ingredient in this was our 2 actors. Great. Ever since we closed Amadeus with Jason O'Connell playing Salieri, and Jason had the last words on our stage that night when we closed. He spoke the last words of that play. And Jason and I had been in conversation about, what could we do together? What projects might exist for us to collaborate on? And Kate Hamill and Jason are married. And Kate, whom we know almost probably better as a playwright nationally, she's one of the most produced plays in America, or most produced playwrights in America. But she had been in Noises Off for us. She had been in Pride and Prejudice for us. She's an amazing actor. And so we started having a conversation with Jason and Kate. What could we do with both of you? What could we do together? Because you were already in isolation, already living together. And Talley's Folly really fit that bill too. I remember calling them on the phone and saying, take a look at Talley's Folly and see if that is a great play for you. In terms of the age of the characters, it's right in their wheelhouse. And so they loved the play, and they were really eager to work on it. And that's really what led us to be able to create Talley's Folly now.
Yes, and I want to talk about the process of actually working with the actors, and what your experience there was, and what your what's the word, trepidations going into it were. But first, so in reading the play again, I know you were familiar with it, obviously, but in reading the play again, what jumped out at you about Talley's Folly, situated in 2020?
Absolutely. The underlining theme of Talley's Folly is that it is a play about hope that is could potentially be lost. That the idea of hope and the preservation of hope hangs in the balance in this play. And to me, I felt like we are a nation where hope hung in the balance, hangs in the balance on so many levels. And to me, from the beginning prologue of the play, because this play begins with the character directly addressing the audience in a very meta-theatrical way, almost a Brechtian way. And so that theme is laid out right in that beginning monologue. This idea that there is hope, and there was a time when there was hope in the land, and that hope has been undone by forces, large societal forces. And this play is an examination, even on a micro level, between two humans. That, can hope have a chance? Can hope triumph? And ultimately, in this play, it is the idea of love that causes hope to triumph.
Mm.
And to me, that's what really attracted me to the play. And there are some lines in the play about hope that I try to shine a spotlight on in the staging and in the way we approach the play, that I hope pull that thread through the story.
Um, yeah, when we were talking about it, and even in revisiting it as we were, thinking about doing it, I had the same experience of reading the play and thinking, oh my goodness, it's been what, 1979, 80 it was, right? One Pulitzer Prize, but I probably hadn't. I mean, I had never forgotten the play because it's a play you remember, and it's deceptive in its simplicity, and it stays with you. And in reading it in preparation for considering it with you, I was struck by how relevant it seemed. And isn't this one of the marks of the enduring literature for the stage, or are those plays that we come back to and they speak to us still, no matter when they were written. So and that was really exciting to see and to be thinking about, and so glad that we could bring it to our audiences. And the risk of tooting our own horn, but more yours, the production is beautiful.
Oh, thank
It's lovely. It is very, very lovely. And one of the things I have come to know about you as a director and appreciate is, and I've said this before, is that in the theater I could I could cover my ears and not be able to hear and absolutely know what the story is. It's the clarity of your direction that I find so oh, what's the word? Appealing, but obviously vital, right? And interestingly, here it's the same way. If you were to, we don't want you to, anyone, we don't want you to, but if you turn down the sound, if you were to turn down the sound, the story is so clear. And yes, that's in part due to these wonderful performances from your actors, but it's also your skill at telling stories for the stage. So I'm really excited that this is the play. It's these combination of artists doing it this way and finding a way to make this virtual experience of theater really work and hold on to what is best about theater. I know it was important to you that it not turn into a film per se, that it holds a documentation, but also an invitation into a theater experience. So I think you and our team has achieved that really, really well. And the national reviews bear that out, I think. So it's really, really exciting. So congratulations on that. So that process, so talk about like working with the actors. It was not how you normally do it. So can you talk about where you began with Jason and with Kate, and then some of the steps that you stepped over that would have been part of the normal rehearsal process that didn't have a role this time around?
Sure. And thank you for the very kind remarks. It's the learning curve was really steep on this for all of us, because I had said early on, we're going to work on this in the same way that we work on any play that we're going to invite an audience in to see. We're not going to try to make a TV show. Nonetheless, there are, and we can talk more about this, there are definite concessions, not concessions, but awarenesses that you have to really focus on, knowing that folks will watch this on their computer or on their smart TV. And so, accommodations really were important for us to consider throughout the process. But our primary focus was we're creating a play for the stage. But the process was different than a normal process might be. For instance, for safety protocols, our first week of rehearsal had to be on Zoom. Just like we're talking here, we rehearsed for a week on Zoom. And that was really quite fine when we were doing what you call table work, which is that part of the process when you're reading the script and you're analyzing the script for its content, for its themes, and when you're bringing in outside experts to help you enrich the historic context, the religious context, whatever a specific play may call for. We always engage, experts to come in and give us an education about these background aspects. And so all that was wonderful on Zoom, worked really well. But then at a certain point, you do run out of stuff you can do on Zoom with two actors. I had this in my head, this idea that I would create this, very detailed physical world on our mind. We always have a model of the set, and we get, the designer gives us little people, and I can move them around. And I thought that I would do that. Well, that was ridiculous. For maybe another play it would have worked, but this was ridiculous for two people on stage for over 90 minutes. So we found that the Zoom thing was beneficial to a point. But then usually after the table work process, in a normal 3-week rehearsal process, which is how long all of our plays rehearse, 22 days, we would go into the rehearsal room where there would be tape on the floor that taped out the whole set, everything kind of two-dimensional. And we would pretend we had a set and pretend we had different things. And we would stage the play, and it would give the actors that interim time they needed to start to really cement their characters, or at least continue to explore their characters. And I have a pretty specific process when I direct. I start with the table work and getting all of our intellectual work completed. Then I go right into staging in the rehearsal room, where I create the physical life with the actors, who goes what, where, when, how. Then I go back and do the character detail work and relationship work at a point where I hope that point the actors are feeling much better off book, and that we can start to explore relationships. And so that's the next phase of the rehearsal. Then that's where we end up with when we are in the rehearsal room. And then we do our run throughs, and then we go down into the theater and we restage the play on the set. We continue to explore our relationships, and we go into tech. We add the sound and the lights, and then the costumes and all the props are there. And then we go into previews, and then we open, and that's kind of the normal process. Well, after our Zoom rehearsal, we skipped the rehearsal room. It was safer, as I mentioned before, to just go right into the theater. And that's disconcerting for the actors because they don't get that interim developmental process. They go right from 0 to 60. And then here we have my cat joining us right here. This is all
a theater lover, no doubt.
My dog is barking downstairs. My cat's here. This is, one of the things it's always an adventure working at home. And so, they missed that interim step of development in the rehearsal room. And we went right to the theater with all the set and all the props, and they weren't off book yet. So they really had to adjust their process, and I had to adjust my process to really make sure that the actors were getting the support they needed to do the proper development. These are complex characters that, and when there are only 2 actors on stage and they're on stage the whole time, that is a lot of work. That is a lot of work. And I really tip my hat to Jason and Kate. They did fantastic work. And I couldn't have been more thrilled. I'm going to go. Can you hear my dog barking in the background?
Yeah, it's not a problem.
I'm going to go just let her in real quick.
And cut.
Lily, you want to come up here? Come on up. That's one of the adventures of working at home. It's been interesting to think about. I had the pleasure of being, because of course I work at the theater and I'm an artistic team. I saw a run through by myself at extraordinary distance in the balcony, the only person in the balcony
face masked and all. And it was, you forget how, not you don't forget, it was great to be in a theater again and to see people on stage, even as a rehearsal process. And again, our hope here is that we have captured that on video and have given those of you who will be viewing or have viewed, thank you, the show, a theatrical experience. So, Bob, to talk a little bit about the video-ness of it. Who did we work with? What was that process like? And I know in some ways that was a newish world for you.
It was a completely new world for me, and we were very fortunate to partner with a really great local production company, Black Cub Productions. They were fantastic to work with, and a lot of what you'll view when you watch the film is their artistry. Because when you're a director in a theater, one of your jobs as director is to, as you were talking earlier, Kyle, is to determine where you want the audience to look. What's part of the story are we emphasizing or drawing out? And so part of my job to stage a play in a theater is to move the audience's eye from place to place, from focus to focus, through the techniques of staging, through the psychology of staging, to tell the story. But yet, when you're transferring that story to film, the editor really, determines to large measure where your eye is going to go through the different levels and degrees of shots and close up or a distant shot, and who they're emphasizing in the shot. That all falls to the film editor. And so we were so lucky to work with Black Cub. They worked with us from day one. They came into the process right off the bat. They were in the rehearsal. They were doing test recordings. And knowing that, we had just one or two shots at this. It's not like we, in a theater, we get 3 weeks for your characters to evolve and grow and get, even more rich as the run continues. Well, here we gotta nail all that by what we called opening night, which was the day we recorded. And so we were fortunate that we were really being educated by Black Cub. They were, helping us learn their vocabulary as they were learning our vocabulary. And we had an incredible design team. Suzanne Chesney, Zerton Lim, Don Chang, all really, and Jackie Herder, all because Jackie is here in residence. Jackie was in charge of the sound. Dawn was in charge of lights. Suzanne did costumes. Zerton did set. And particularly when we got into the filming, Jackie and Dawn, because they were dealing with the audio and the lighting, they really had to play a key role in that process. Because again, how theatrical production interprets the film, the lighting and the sound are particularly in play. And so, we were mindful and so thrilled that we could work with such a great partners at Black Cub to pull this filmed version off.
Right. Yes. One of the things that and I think you're speaking to it, stands out, of course, is that there is the ephemeраcy of theater, that the show, any of our audience sees as the only time that thing will ever live and exist, right? That the audience itself is part of that performance. The audience is never the same. The actors never do the same thing. They don't take the same breath at the same places. And yet now here we have this permanent documentation of a performance. And that on some level, although people have been doing this for a very long time, capturing stage performances on film for Syracuse Stage, it's new. And did you and the actors talk at all about that? What you just mentioned, they don't get the chance to live through the run, and what that meant. I know you had a conversation with Jason and Kate on opening night for the opening night premiere. And they spoke to some of that and watching and not watching now. But did you talk to them about that at all and what that would mean?
We did. Of course, at the end of the day, there was nothing they could do about that. I mean, they just had to soldier on. And I do remember after we finished recording it, and they had just had, we did 2 run-throughs on that day, so they were exhausted at the end of the day. And you know, it was, they recorded it. We had done a full run, and then I remember just walking up to them. They were still on stage in their costume, and I said, "Well, go home. We're all done." At the very point where they would just have been launching
Wow.
their work as actors. And so, yes, I mean, and also here's the thing too, Kyle, the play is funny. Uh,
Mhm.
and particularly the way, Jason, who began his career years ago as a stand-up comic, and people who saw his work as Salieri know that he can really honestly and genuinely through text supported ways find, we can laugh with, there's humor in that role that other actors might not have captured so successfully and so richly. And there are times when, we were laughing, and it's really hard when you're playing to an empty room
Mhm.
to not have that energy coming back at you as an actor. Actors live off that energy of the live performance. And so we didn't have that. And because there were only 3 of us in the room when Black Cub was making the film, we had to be very, very mindful not to laugh out loud, because the last thing you want is one guy laughing or clapping, and it would sound weird and kind of pathetic. So they didn't have that energy to feed off of, and so they had to generate new sources of feedback loops, because actors, we do previews, and the actors get that feedback loop, and that informs some of their decisions and choices, particularly in a role like Mac Friedman, the role Jason played, where he spends the first 10 minutes of play talking to the audience, and he was talking to an empty room. And so that is a challenge, and I feel like our actors really rose to that
Mhm.
challenge. uh, um, because when you're making a film or a TV show as an actor, you're filming out of sequence. You don't really, you're filming it over and over and over again.
Right.
You're doing different takes, different angles. Here we worked chronologically. We filmed this play from start to finish. We didn't stop. We didn't do outtakes. We didn't. We started the play and we ran it. And if they flubbed a line, that's in there.
Mhm.
And that, again, because I wanted that theatrical experience, which is uh, perfect in its imperfection.
Yes, yes, yes. Um, and so relatedly, in watching the film and watching the capture, we like to say, the video of the performance, because it is, it is now being seen through the eye of a camera, and that does have certain qualities that nothing can replace live theater. We've established that. But in living and working with this medium, there are some benefits, some storytelling benefits that can occur. And one of them is, if you're in the theater, you're stationary. And so if you're 20 feet from the stage, you're always 20 feet from the stage. If you're 50 feet from the stage, you're always 50 feet from the stage. But with video and with editing, we can get a little closer. And this play in particular seems really right for the kind of intimacy that, say, a medium to close-up shot can give. Um, in watching the work and watching work you've done in the past, now Amadeus, and now this, what have you come to appreciate about the medium we are now sort of forced to work in?
I was remarking about that with one of our viewers who had seen it and had commented to me about the idea of, no, my dog is barking again. I have no idea what she's barking at now, so we'll just
She
leave it with
disagrees with you.
that. But the fact that you can see the actor emotions up close and personal is something that when you're sitting, I don't know, let me just see what she's barking at now. I'm so sorry.
What can you do?
Anyway, you can see that up close and personal experience that you don't get when you're sitting in a theater, and that to me is one of the rewards, one of the payoffs of watching it on film, is you get that extra bonus of seeing those emotions up close and personal.
Hmm.
And that to me is one of the real rewards that you don't get. That and the accessibility. Even though we're watching it on film. Folks in Utah can watch our production. Folks overseas can watch our production. So more people can experience it on film than could ever have fit into the Archbold Theater in our 3-week run. That's another part of one of the adventures of doing this.
And a lot of people, so much of American culture and life and work has gone virtual. Particularly for those who can have the option to do that. And what we hear being talked about a lot is what have we actually learned that we might take back to when things get when it becomes the new normal or normal returns. So has there been anything in working in this medium that you think, oh, I'm gonna keep that for when I'm just directing for a live audience?
Oh, well, I think, it's going to be quite a while before everybody feels comfortable being back in a theater, no matter when we have a vaccine. So I think we're going to keep recording our plays and making them accessible to more people in that regard. People who can't make their way to Syracuse to see a play, we want to make our work accessible. So we're going to continue to do that as long as the rights houses continue to give us permission to do that, that's another whole different, kettle of fish. But, I think that certainly, I have a new appreciation for our collaborators. I have a new, appreciation for, I think getting in the room, getting on stage even earlier than we would have been able to otherwise, while it presented one set of challenges, was incredibly rewarding. We were able to develop the characters once we got through that initial phase of being, the jarring sense of going right from the table into the theater. Having that extra time in the space was incredibly rewarding. And so I think that, that extra luxury of time in the space was something I want to think about for the future. And I have to say, Kyle, we've done it once. No, Amadeus we did on adrenaline. That came together in 3 days because the world was falling apart. This process was planned to the nth degree, and it was our first time out of the chute. Now we're already working on the second, third, and fourth projects we have coming up in our season, and so the learning curve was very steep with Talley's Folly. We'll take those learnings and apply them to the next project, and continue to figure out how does what we're doing and what we're learning in this time of COVID influence how we create our art moving forward. And I know I'm already, in talking to my colleagues around the country, I know that we are all examining this and thinking about what are we going to take away? What's going to remain when we are back to whatever normal becomes?
Well, Bob, it's always great to talk to you about the work that you do here. And I'm very proud to be part of what we're doing at Syracuse Stage and to be working with you. And I'm very happy that you, the audience, are taking in our work and supporting us at this time. And we look forward to seeing you back in the theater when we can be there. But I want to thank Bob Hupp for joining us. I want to thank you for joining us as well. If you have not seen Talley's Folly, please stream. Please tell your friends about it. If you have, stream it again and enjoy. But thank you for viewing. Thank you for tuning in. And Bob, again, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure, Kyle. I want to echo what you said, to thank everybody for joining us and sticking with us through this challenging time. We'll continue to create work for you, and we're so grateful for your continued support of Syracuse Stage.
Be well. Thank you. I think we're good.